T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Global Watch News. My name is Lori Swan. I hope you guys are all doing well. If you are in the live chat, we do ask that you keep it family friendly. There will be moderators in there to make sure that we stay within the terms of service put forward to us by the platform we're utilizing tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Take a minute, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when we go live. So this is just a really quick update. A couple of things came to our attention last night after we got done with our live stream. Two things that I wanted people to be aware of. Apparently yesterday at Wells Fargo Bank, if you were supposed to have a direct deposit for your paycheck or whatever it was, if you had a direct deposit that was going to go into your account yesterday, it didn't go in. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how to get your money. I just know that is what I was told by several different sources. Second thing, if you have a Spotify store, or I'm sorry, if you have an Etsy store, or if you have a Spotify, they're holding your money as well. And that is because apparently both of those companies, Etsy and Spotify, both bank out of Silicon Valley Bank. I don't know what to tell you about that either. The feds have your money, and I don't know if they're even going to release your money. I don't know. Another thing is that this thing is, there's a word that's being used to describe what is happening right now, and that's a trigger word, contagion. Thought it's an interesting word to use, but it is actually a very good word used to describe what is happening right now, because it's spreading. It's spreading to different banking, financial institutions. It's spreading to the housing. It's spreading to the stocks. It's spreading to, everything across the board with the economy, fuel, oil prices, our food. We're going to see this across the board. This is, and I do believe, a pivotal moment in the downfall, in the reset of our economy here in the United States. We've been telling you for years that this would happen on a Friday afternoon. We knew that would happen, and that is what exactly, precisely, 100% happened yesterday. It happened on a Friday afternoon. Will we have a bank holiday on Monday? I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a mind reader. I don't know. Is it possible? Yeah. I don't know. And this is trickling down in contagion and spreading to things like cryptocurrency and everything, straight across the board. I hope you guys are taking the opportunity to stock up on things. I know it's hard, especially emergency food stamps just ended this month. I know a lot of people are in dire straits right now, especially if you're one of those people that didn't get their direct deposit yesterday. And I just know of Wells Fargo. I don't know of any other ones. So yeah, I don't know, I don't know what to tell you. I do have a video that I'm going to play for you real quick. It does give a lot of good information, and Coinbase is only allowing $50 withdrawals today. Yeah, like I said, this is spreading. This is definitely spreading, and I don't know if it's directly caused by the same things that affected Silicon Valley Bank, or if it's just fear. If it's just these other banking facilities taking precautions. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a mind reader. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't answer those questions. So I'm going to play you this video real quick, and yeah, I'll be back later, or we'll be back tonight or later or whatever.
Politically, the tide.
Oops. If anything happens.
Politically, the tide is turning, and people all over the world are now rejecting the New World Order. The Central Bank of Nigeria launched their CBDC a little over a year ago, but the people rejected it. So early this year, the Nigerian banks emptied the ATM machines and closed their doors. This resulted in angry protests. The people attacked ATMs and blocked roads in multiple cities. The Bank of Lebanon has crashed. The Lebanese pound has fallen to an all-time low of 80,000 against the US dollar. The people have taken to the streets. Banks have been set on fire. The rise in Fed rates has officially killed America's biggest lender, Silicon Valley Bank. The FDIC shutters Silicon Valley Bank. $152 billion of uninsured deposits are destroyed. The rise in Fed rates also killed Silvergate Capital. Several regional bank stocks have plummeted as a result of the Silicon Valley Bank and the Federal Reserve's rate hikes. The housing market is collapsing as well. The majority of commercial real estate loans are lent by small banks. Massive short bets are now happening in the commercial real estate market. The Federal Reserve Bank is taking down the housing market along with all regional banks, leaving only its vassals who will be distributing CBDCs as a solution. The financial experts are now recommending that people have food, gold and silver, and cash in their possession.
It affects everybody, and so I started studying in history, and I found out the same thing happened on March 3rd, 1933. Roosevelt did the exact same thing for the exact same reason, leading to the exact same result. And so studying past periods that didn't happen in my lifetime, like we haven't been through a war before, and we haven't been through a civil war, or we haven't been in this circumstances. So the three big things that are happening in our lifetimes that we have not been through before are the creation of an enormous amount of debt and printing of money to monetize the debt. That's number one. And so we'll talk about inflation and where we are in that cycle. And I'm like a mechanic. I'm not ideological. I'm just like, what are the cause-effect relationships? How does that dynamic work mechanistically? But it produces inflation. The second, but very interrelated to this, is the large internal conflicts that we are having. Populism of the left and populism of the right, and values differences that is producing a conflict, brought about also by the largest wealth gap differences, largest opportunity gap differences, and so on. That type of conflict I have never seen in my life, but that also happened in the 1930 to 45 period. And so I needed to go back and then study that over time. And then the third is the great power conflict. When 1945, when this world order began, as all world orders, there's a war, there's a dominant power. The dominant power sets the rules. And when the dominant power sets the rules, then you have a period of peace and prosperity. And so the United States in 1945 had 80% of the world's money. It had half of world GDP. It had a monopoly on the military power. And so we came into the American world order. That gap, that power gap, has shrunk to be approximately equal with the other side, and we're having a great power conflict. So you have to go back to that period of time, and I've seen that period of time happen repeatedly. When these three things happen repeatedly, it's a very dangerous set of circumstances. So we are in a position on the financial one to be in a position where you cannot raise living standards by raising money and credit. In other words, if you increase money, then the value of money is going to go down. And one man's debts are another man's assets. And so when they get negative returns by holding a debt asset, they're going to sell that debt asset, and that produces a problem, and that's over a period of time. And so the Romans, for example, put less gold into gold coins. And so you saw it in its way, and that certainly produces kind of the inflation, because you can't raise living standards by printing more money. So we have that going on. And so there's that dynamic of where is a storehold of wealth? The purpose of a currency is two purposes: a medium of exchange and a storehold of wealth. A storehold of wealth means you buy its debt and its assets, and you can save in it. And people believe that cash is a safe investment, but they're seeing that what happens is it's losing buying power, and it will lose buying power. So they start to realize it's not a safe investment. Inflation over the last year, about 8%. Interest rates were nothing. And so there was an 8% change in buying power. That kinds of changes and sort of reinforces the inflation cycle. We pay too much attention to one currency in relationship to another currency, and not enough attention to the fact that those aren't the choices. It's a choice for transactions, but it's not a choice for storehold of wealth. So if you're holding European euros and euro-denominated debt, and you're getting a negative interest rate or thereabouts, and the same is true in Japan, and you're not making up with inflation, none of those are good. And like in the 30s, they all depreciated, they all went down in relationship to goods and services and other asset prices. So what you see is all the currencies along those lines are sort of tied to each other, and they're bad storeholds of wealth, and that's why you see moves to other assets. It pays to borrow, or if not borrow, but put your money into assets that maintain buying power. So you see it happen in all the different ways. So look at whether what you're holding in the form of that cash denominated, and that'll be a debt instrument. That's how you hold a currency in order to have a storehold of wealth. Look at its real returns. The Fed understands, and central banks know, that when inflation is undesirably high and the economy is relatively strong, you put on the brakes, and that when the reverse is the case, you put on the gas. And they don't understand, I think, monetary inflation enough. What has happened is that because they put on the gas so much, have allowed interest rates to be so low, as I say, in many cases, negative interest rates, and they've made liquidity so abundant that not only didn't you have to pay interest on your debt, but you didn't have to pay principal on your debt because they would have interest-only loans. And they would have low covenants, like it's easy to not meet your debt requirement. Companies borrow, individuals borrow, interest-only loans. And when there's no interest rate, basically means the stuff is free. You can buy houses, you can buy all sorts of things on that basis. And the world has adapted to that. And they did that at a very low real interest rate, a very low interest rate relative to inflation. And then they printed a lot more of that money and so on. And so inflation is going up. So mechanistically, what that means is now we have a lot more debt and we have an economy and markets, financial markets, that the pricing is structured based on those very low interest rates and that amount of liquidity. So when you go through the calculations, when I go through the calculations, and I figure a high enough level of interest rate to provide a decent real return is, for a holder of the debt, is much too high of an interest rate for the markets and the economy. But you're going to have an inflation rate that's above the interest rates, and that's not going to be desirable, so investors want to sell that. And you can see it as interest rates rise. You can see its effects on markets. You can see the effects on the capital markets. So you see the stock market going down while the bond market is going down. And that means most everything that people own practically are going down practically, because most people are in stocks and bonds, that kind of thing. The Fed's trade-off is going to be very difficult. Right now, they have a very restrictive monetary policy plan. I judge that by the supply and the demand for credit. So the federal government is going to run large deficits. So that means they will have to sell debt. They'll sell treasury bills and bonds. The Federal Reserve is planning to sell $1.1 trillion of debt also. Private investors are inclined, pension funds and so on, they're losing money while there's inflation, so they're losing buying power. They're selling. And there's a selling imbalance. And that selling imbalance means, because it has to balance with the buyers, that means a contraction in private credit, which means a recession. So as I look through this, we're in a tightening phase where it's beginning to bite, but it's not really, it's barely begun, because the actual rises in short rates have barely begun. It started, the other things are rising. And that trade-off between growth and inflation is going to be very difficult. And that's why I believe that we've entered a period of stagflation, quite like the 1970s. And then we can't look at it alone. We have to look at it in light of the two other big forces. In other words, the internal conflict force. We don't have enough money, and we don't have enough real money. We have plenty of fiat money because we can print it, but you don't have enough real money. And everybody says we need to spend money on this thing and that, and I don't even disagree with that. When I look at the social conditions and the infrastructure, and I look at, okay, Ukraine, do we need to rebuild the Ukraine? Do we need to have greater military expenditures? Do we need to have these things? But we don't ask, how much money do we have to spend? And so because of the nature of that, even just the costliness, we need to take care of the environment. But it's going to be expensive when we take care of the environment, because we haven't yet fully developed the technologies that are fully cost effective in order to do that. So I think that that's the mechanical description of where we are in a political environment. So as we have inflation, that's going to be a big political thing, and it's going to cause greater polarity. There's a risk that neither side accepts losing because of the populism, and you put more financial strain and things get worse. Conditions are likely to be significantly worse, for example, in 2024 than they are now. Just take a normal economic cycle and where you are. It has the form together of what is money. I mean, it's Genesis. What is money? And how can we not only digitalize it, which makes it some extent efficient, but also the real questions. Can it maintain value so it will not be depreciated by central banks? That's a key thing. Can it be transferred, used all around the world, accepted for purchases and sales all around the world? Then it has to do with issues like, can it be private? There's a saying in gold's case, which is, it's the only financial asset that you can own that is private and you can move around, that isn't dependent on somebody paying you money, paying you something. So as a medium of exchange. Crypto, those in a fiat world, naturally becomes a alternative, a consideration. And the fact that it's gone on, something like Bitcoin, I guess about 11 years, and it hasn't been hacked, and it, is working in that way, has its particular appeal. It has big issues. It's not a private asset. It is easily outlawed. It doesn't constitute a high enough percentage of wealth. It's like right now, for example, Bitcoin's worth maybe $700 billion or so, and which makes it a small asset by comparison to a lot of things like Microsoft is worth more than crypto is. And so it hasn't reached those particular stages. I think that people are grappling for what the new money will be in this environment. And I think we don't know yet what the new money is. I think we're going to see different countries put out their different versions of digital currencies, and then there will be private assets, and gold will play a role. The important thing is we have entered an era which will carry us through the next number of years of what is the money that is widely accepted as a medium of exchange and a viable storehold of wealth.
Okay, I'm going to show you guys a couple of things because he did kind of push the whole Bitcoin thing, and you guys know that I don't agree with the Bitcoin whatsoever. I don't agree with it because of the fact that Rothschilds invested a lot of money in Bitcoin a number of years ago. And let's see, I can go to this one, let's see, right here. Oops. Wrong one. Okay. Here we have Rothschild Investment Corp has increased its Bitcoin exposure by 300% since April. And this was last year. Guys, if you didn't think it was going to be able to stay private for too long, did you? You didn't think that those guys that, those computer geeking, those computer hackers that were working on the dark web, creating this cryptocurrency and doing all this stuff. And you didn't think that once it caught on and got a grip, that it was going to be able to stay out of the hands of the elite for very long. And if you did think that, yeah. I knew that there was a problem with Bitcoin a number of years ago, and I'm going to show you again how I knew. Remember Jekyll Island? Well, and how they met in private, and it was secretive, and they met and they created the Federal Reserve. Richard Branson, Necker Island in the Caribbean, same thing. Richard Branson's private blockchain summit begins on Necker Island. Every year, Bitcoin, the Bit Fury group, they have their secret meetings. And I could get into the people that were there the first couple of years. And I could show you that there's a link to Bitcoin and the Nexus, a sex cult. I could show you that. Actually, I've done a whole live stream on that on the original channel that was taken down. But I could do that again if that's something you guys want to see. If you want to see the connection between Bitcoin, human trafficking, Epstein-ish things. So be careful. Be careful when an alternative is offered to you by the elite. Be careful if somebody offers you something in secret or gives you a guarantee that this is going to make it all right. The New World Order is going to come and you're going to be safe. It's not true. Okay. So, yes, you want me to do that? I will get that stuff together and show you. I was appalled at what I found, the things that happened over on Necker Island. We're talking the Dalai Lama involved in Nexium sex cult, okay? And I have the proof. I have the documents. I have the pictures. And I will get that together for you. All right, I'm going to get off here. I got a meatloaf in the oven. I got a hungry husband upstairs. But yeah, and I think we've decided on a topic for Wednesday night. I think we're going to talk about the 411 missing people, the missing persons, 411, in the federal forest preserves and cryptids. So I think that's going to be our topic of conversation on Wednesday. But I'm sure Ernie and I will be back again. I think, hold on a minute. Tomorrow night, I have a show set up called Psychological Warfare. So yeah, we'll be back tomorrow night. So I will see you then. And yeah, the link is already up. If you guys want to go over, it's over up on the channel. So I do want to close close by saying that, as always, we give this information not to cause any sort of panic or any sort of fear. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 says, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, of the love, and of sound mind." Remember that as you go about your day today, and we will see you back here tomorrow, 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And until then, remember, eyes open, no fear.